Good morning to everyone. I am an expert consultant in geothermal at the ADEME, which is a French energy agency, where I'm looking at with other colleagues how we can put in place mechanisms and a strategy to develop geothermal, not only in France, in the continental France, but also in its overseas territories. Some of the tools that we may use are, for example, a roadmap of best practices. So I'm going to talk about a guide that we put together within the ATEC project, or the ETC project, when we look at how we're moving forward with environmental and social integration so that we can integrate geothermal electricity production in some of these projects.
La géothermie, les Philippines, l'Indonésie avec leurs milliers d'îles, le Japon.
So when you look at geothermal, Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, New Zealand, the Azores Islands, Hawaii, Iceland, Guadeloupe, and soon Dominica are all volcanic island areas which have been able to use geothermal in a very advantageous manner. So obviously, this production or electricity geothermal production has many advantages. We've already spoken about it. It's energy that is very easy to baseload production. It does not have a lot, it does not produce greenhouse gas emissions, are very low. And also it is economically profitable. Despite these advantages, we know that a geothermal production facility is an industrial facility with impacts. So the neighboring villages and populations may be impacted by the construction of a geothermal power plant. So they may be putting in place such a plant in very isolated areas. So this could lead to the fact that the neighboring populations may actually oppose the construction of the power plant. So therefore, within the ETC confines, we've put together a geothermal guide, which proposes how to really implement the successful integration of geothermal projects in island context. All of the stakeholders could be interested by this guide. This means project leaders, financial backers, local governments, local administrations, environmental protection associations, and also, of course, the citizens of the concerned areas. The guide has two parts. The first part looks at geothermal energy itself and its production, and the second part looks at the various ways of moving forward and the endeavors, the undertakings that need to be done in the environmental and societal integration approach. It has an annex of about 20 technical sheets, which shows the various technical aspects of geothermal. It's about 160 pages. It has a lot of illustrations, so we've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible, and it will be printed in both English and French. It shall be available and downloadable on our site. You can see them here on the screen. We hope to be able to put them online by December 2023. So if we look at the guide's content, so the first part, we look at what geothermal energy actually is. It's heat coming from the center of the planet. What is its source? What are the various forms? How can you use it? what is its value, how it can be used to both heat and cool buildings, how it can be used to produce electricity, how it's being used throughout the world, and what are the future possibilities within this development. And then we'll look at what really geothermal electricity production is. So how energy is converted into electricity. We looked at what an actual project entails, what it is made up of, digging, turbines, exchangers. And then we looked at how you put together from A to Z a geothermal project. It's quite complex, various stages. So we look at these various explorations, how they're exploring the resource, how it's put on the grid, how you run a power plant, and what was really done on the ground with these power plants. We also look at the regulatory environment. And then we look at what is the lifespan of a geothermal power plant. There's also a question. We look at the economic and financing questions. For example, the risk analysis of these power plants and their production, and also their construction. Part 2, we look how we can integrate this from a social and environmental point of view. Firstly, what are the impacts of a geothermal project? For example, soil and ground usage, impacts on flora and fauna. What are the impacts on the water? Also the impact of the increase of the traffic for really building and putting in place such a project, for example, greenhouse gas emissions. And then we look at what are the big changes facing islands when they look at producing energy through geothermal power production, for example, air quality, the water quality, and the fact that it's very necessary to protect flora and fauna, especially on these islands that have very unique and endemic animal species. So it's very necessary to protect them. So when we look at this, we look at how, when we take into account these challenges and the impacts, how can we look at them within the island context, and how can we really minimize them as much as possible when we're putting together a geothermal project? So we then put forward many technical recommended approaches of the various stages of a geothermal project. For example, how to put the building in the environment, water management, how we can look at the various emissions of the power plant. So these are technical recommendations that try to reduce its impact. And also we look at the fact that it's very important for the project holder to involve the local communities who may be impacted by these projects, to really involve them in the upstream development of the project, and also all throughout the project development. We also have various recommendations concerning involving the various stakeholders, and then also communication. Considering the fact that, as far as we know, such a guide does not exist, we hope that it will be used as a reference tool to accompany these geothermal project developments and to really allow islands to benefit from this type of energy. Thank you very much for your attention.